Welcome to Pop Culture Minefield Saturday Morning Funtime. This is Zack telling you to get those breakfast bowls ready because away we go.
All right, let's get that fucking logo off there. Jesus Christ. It's Saturday Morning Fun Time. See? And we are here to do fun stuff on a Saturday morning / early noon. We are still waiting for our guest of honor to show up. You know, he's a busy guy, so I never freak out when a guest is late. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but let's turn to the chat real quick. And we're going to say greetings to our chat. We have Pat S., our producer. We got Keely Chow, Blaine's Escape Corner, War Monkey, one of my two favorite monkeys. Stephen Ransom, Martin Acosta Santana, who I don't know if I like that guy or not. I mean, he's such a phony with that fucking accent. So sexy. Him and his sexy accent. Let's see, Das Wolfrin is here. Hello, Das Wolfrin. Would you like to touch my monkey? We have the Peter Venkman fan side. Let's see. Blaine's Escape Corner already said. Let's see. Midnight's Edge. Tom, what is up, buddy? Yeah, Chato is here. Met him thanks to really your birthday bash, Tom. And then I just struck up a conversation with him, and it was nice.
What's up, Tom?
On. We're not stealing him. I swear to God, Tom. You know it's we don't steal from you.
We kidnap.
We steal from them all the time. Oh, my God. Our whole show is the illegitimate child of Midnight's Edge. We have Parrot Head in the house. And let's see. Anybody else jumping in? I'm looking. Brandon, of course, is also on the show, so it doesn't count. Baron Orman, who's also on the show, is in the chat. Fuck you, Baron.
Thank you.
Shut up. Let's see who else is here. Mr. Tickle Trunk is here. Excellent. And of course, Penny J is here. That is Dork Knight's mother. And that is not an illegitimate relationship like ours with Midnight's Edge. And I salute you. And in our chat, I mean, not just in our chat, but on our show, we have my co-host and partner in crime, Keith Moncrief. We have Deleted Scenes, also known as Steve the Dork, or Real Steve. We have 24/7 Fusion Media.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
What's up, my brother? How are you doing this day?
Good, man. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well, brother. We have Baron Orman Tog here. We have the very amazing Shanatsky. I'm keeping an eye on you. And, of course, my buddy who I just spent an hour with, the anime guy, Brandon. Snow Dub is in the house. I just saw him. We're getting a bleed over. Hopefully we get a bleed over from Midnight's Edge, too. We'll see. We'll see what happens. God only knows. But, again, we're waiting for our guest to arrive. And, you know, I've learned never fucking panic. There's no point in panicking. And as I told somebody once that couldn't understand why I don't panic, I said, once you stare down the evil end of an AK-47 and walk away alive, nothing else really phases you. And so that's why shit doesn't bother me.
Exactly.
I don't take it personally because Chato is a busy dude, man. He's always busy. I am expecting those script doctors show up, and we will be talking about that scoop story by Mikey Sutton that we did a special video on about 2 hours ago. And this was huge news. It really is. And yes, I know. Anytime like something like this happens, there's always a chance that it might not end up coming to fruition because it's business and things evolve. And Zaslav is new to the entertainment industry. He does not know what he's fucking doing. We know that. But of course, the news that we scooped, Keith, you want to talk about it?
Yeah. Let's see. According to Mikey Sutton, basically Zaslav is interested in creating interested in an R-rated DC Black Label films for director Zack Snyder. Okay, so David Zaslav had discussions to restore the Snyderverse, but he didn't talk to Snyder himself. And so he's basically been around talking to different people, and he's come to the understanding that it would be great to just bring Snyder back to do basically one-off films under the Black label, or DC Black label.
And here's the article over on Geekosity. Keep talking, Keith.
Which I think is a fantastic idea. You know, it allows really almost any filmmaker to come in and basically do what was done with Joker, essentially. Todd Phillips is also being looked
to
at
a lesser
to
degree as a Batman.
Oh gosh. Oh jeez. Oh man, don't get me started.
You don't speak Spanish?
Wait, what did you say? What did you say? Wait a minute. I heard somebody say something. Don't what? Don't what?
Don't get me started.
Really? Oh.
Don't get me started. Don't even get me started.
So,
man.
I don't know. Let's get a general pulse from our panel here, man. I mean, you guys are here. Let's talk about it. Let's start with you, Steven. Real Steve. Yes, deleted.
Well, they need a general over there at in DC Films, and so far I haven't heard any names come up that tell me that, hey, they have a leader. Zack Snyder, really? I don't think Todd Phillips would really want to do it.
No. We're not talking about being the lead for DC.
Maybe I'm missing
films.
the point here, but
no. This is a particular set of films. This isn't overall control of the DC films. Okay. DC Studios is still an idea that's coming, and they're going to have a person run that. This is a subset of films within that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to me it just comes down to, will the scripts for these movies be good? Because I brought this up earlier. I have very mixed feelings when it comes to Zack Snyder. He's very hit and miss with me as a filmmaker. I have issue with what he said on the charity stream. I didn't watch Justice League. I have no intention of doing so.
Well, yeah,
I'm kind of in
I had trouble.
I could care less.
People tried to cancel me because of what I said about what he did. I took a shot at him over what he did. I thought it was shitty. But look, man, separate the artist from the art. You have to do it. Otherwise, there's nothing to fucking watch.
I mean, as far as like a Black Label movie is concerned, or a series of movies, I'm all for it. I think they could be good if they're done well. I'm just saying, I'm not positive Zack Snyder's that guy.
Well, we're going to find out because David Zaslav fucking loves him. And I mean, I don't know if he's sucking his dick yet, but he fucking loves him. But let's move on. 24/7, your reaction?
Actually, to be honest, it frees him up to basically go beyond probably the measures he was allowed to, do regularly. Black Label is basically your R-rated, and that's where he can probably come off and do some real wicked shit. Like they were coming off. I read the article. I actually did a video on it too. Well, they were showing like the Joker for an example. They can have to where Joker's sitting there doing all kind of diabolical shit, Joker type shit, bombs, the gas, having him shoot people, have his henchmen do all kind of, heinous shit and just have him run amok. He's a star of his own movie and just make it as grimy and as fucked up as he wants to show and to prove what Joker is, how he's, he could switch, gears in a second, I don't know. It's just to put it all in something. And then plus I heard that it was also going to be like, the budget was going to be a lot less than your normal, your other movies, since it's going to be I'm not sure. Would that be going straight to like HBO Max, or would they still be theatrical releases? And that might be a difference too.
The way that Keith and I have been really analyzing this, it sounds like if JJ is going to be sticking around, he's going to be doing the HBO Max stuff, and I think that they're looking absolutely at Zack's for cinematic.
Cinematic, okay. And shit, like I said, the sky's the limit. Once you give him a R rating, and he could basically cut loose and do what the fuck he wants to do, I think that'll bring a different, dynamic than him just having to just do a regular movie and it has to be PG-13. At his worst. I mean, it's a difference. Mm-hmm. And then plus you can see more creativity. Yeah, I mean, you can also see more creativity with with a lesser budget. See what they can squeeze out of every penny of that.
So I want to comment. Yes, Gap One, how you doing today, man? Good seeing you again. Man, it's like Gap is everywhere, man. It's like everywhere there's a Gap. Anyway, yeah, I enjoyed being on your show earlier, Brandon. I want to do more of those. That was fun.
Yes, it was.
I do not have enough entertainment to distract me from the shit I need to do. And you now introduced me to this fucking thing. Hold on, let me share my screen. Share screen. I'm absolutely going to be fucking wasting clearly hours watching this shit. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you so much. And when I say thank you, I mean fuck you for fucking giving me one more thing to have to fucking watch. That God, the animation that looks really good. Fuck, that looks good. But getting back to it, I agree with you, 24. And I do think in the end that if they split it, JJ for HBO Max and even though I don't like JJ, I really think that if they do not put him on DC stuff, but more original material, I think JJ will be useful. But when he starts getting put on IPs that are already made, he fucks them up. He is a fucking locust when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to IPs, Star Trek, Star Wars, fucking anything he does for fucking Marvel. But hey, guys, I've got some great news. Paul Chato is in the house.
Hey there.
Paul, welcome to the show. I invited Tom from Midnight's Edge, too, to jump in, but I think he's busy.
Stop it. I was out gardening, and I went, oh, crap.
Oh, wait, no, he's coming. Paul, Script Doctor and Tom will be joining us shortly. So
I'm glad that you have much more intelligent people already to speak to than me. That's great.
Well, so I can't speak for Baron Tog down there in the middle in the Paul Lynn box, but the rest of us are okay.
Oh, stop it!
No. Oh, Finley, you got to do Paul Lynn correctly. Oh,
yeah. So you were out gardening. You were out gardening, so you went from one manure pile to another manure pile. Okay.
Right. I was out gardening.
Yeah, the first talent show I ever did as a kid when I was 13, I won for doing a Paul Lynn impression.
Paul Lynn impression. Oh, good.
Wait, did that. And Seth MacFarlane bases the alien on American Dad off of him.
I'm not surprised. Good to meet all of you folks. It's a pleasure.
Good to meet you.
It's exciting.
Happy to meet you. Big fan of the Frantics.
Yes.
I am just telling you, man, since forever it seems like I have been checking you out. You are a very funny and wise man.
Well,
that's a dangerous combination. On
yeah,
YouTube.
It's like I'm very excited. The Script Doctor is supposed to be joining us. I'm hoping. He has a bunch of work to do today, chores. But Tom said he would be joining us in a few. But I really like the idea of getting you and Script Doctor in here, having you guys together. Because like I listen to you guys when you're on together, and you and Script Doctor know your shit. And dangerous minds, man.
Oh gosh, they are dangerous.
Minds. But your channel is so funny because you're so animated. You are, God, dude, you are so fucking animated. I love watching you, and you get it. You really care about things, and it shows with the way you talk about it.
Well, thank you. But I'm also trying to make it entertaining. I mean, the main point of the channel is to be entertaining, and the stuff I talk about is just a vehicle to entertain. It's like people should not be taking me seriously.
Well, I take some of the things you say seriously because I understand how comedy works, and the way comedy works for me, and I'm assuming it does for you, is it's a great way of delivering medicine. You know? Of course, it's you know, it's its own allegory engine. You've got sci-fi and you've got comedy. There's a huge history of the jester, the king not killing him for telling the truth, only because they need him around for entertainment. So they put up with the jester as long as he's funny.
Yeah. And then along came Will Smith.
What did the five fingers say to the face?
He kind of ruined it. I did make a joke saying that every club I play at now, I'm going to stick in my rider that no one's allowed to hit me.
Well, when it happened, the first thing I said was, worst heckler ever.
Isn't that what Curly Joe Dorita had in his contract with the Stooges, not get hit?
Yes. That's true.
You must have the same. You must have the same agent.
I didn't know that. Although I did see the Three Stooges come to the CNE every year. That was a highlight.
Well, I want people to know, and I'm going to put it in the chat here in a second. This is Paul's Call Me Chato channel on YouTube, and it is well worth your visit.
Oh, you're very, very kind. Thank you. I'm enjoying myself enormously. And it's a pleasure to be included with all these august individuals.
And I'm actually posting it now. That's why I'm slowing down in my talking, because talking and typing is really hard.
No, it is tough.
Yeah, I'll take care of it for you, Gary.
Shut up, Brandon.
Brandon's taking over. Watch out.
Martin could take over if he ever.
So I didn't mean to interrupt. What were you talking about?
Well, we were talking about it, and I'm gonna actually. I really wanted to get your pulse on this. But before we get into it, I do want to thank Dennis McCullough for his $5 super chat, and also for being a member of our channel. Be a man, Gary. 13 episodes can be done in an afternoon, you pansy. Watch Goblin Slayer. Fucker, I'm going to do it. I'll take your challenge and your fucking $5.
Thank you for the $5.
Yeah, thank you.
Actually, on the topic of that, Chato, are you like an anime fan? Because I know you've talked a lot and you've actually, brought up titles that most people wouldn't know.
Shinatsky,
like
one second, my friend, because I didn't finish. I have to do my video for the thank you. And I'm going to do just a quick one, and then we'll move right back into your question.
Wow.
There you go.
I think StreamYard should have a special animation of someone just putting some money in a G-string.
Yeah, I'm actually learning so many techniques, and I think that would be great. Like one of those transparent animations that we can do layers, animated layers through GIFs. And I could actually have somebody put $1 in somebody's G-string.
I like it.
I'm going to look that up, dude. I'm going to see if I can do it.
Love to love you, baby.
Yeah, buddy. Well, you're as old as Keith and I, so you're in good company here because, I grew up in the 60s, 70s, and was an adult by the 80s.
Yeah.
When were you born, Paul?
54.
God damn, you're old. No,
I am.
Wow.
You're exactly 10 years older than me. I was born in 64.
I am really old. No, but I look way better than you.
Fuck yeah, you do.
Yes, he does.
You're drop dead.
Everybody looks better than Gary.
Drop dead sexy, mate. Okay. But
it's the Wolverine shirt.
What we were talking about today was the big scoop story by Mikey Sutton. Now, do you know who Mikey Sutton is?
No.
Mikey Sutton runs a website online magazine called Geekosity Magazine. And he is a close friend of ours, and he was voted last year #1 scooper. That's above everybody. His scoops are, right now, he is batting 1,000. And if you know how batting averages work, that means he's had no strikeouts or misses. The guy is absolutely nailing it on the board. Sometimes it takes 3 years for his scoops to finally be realized.
Wow.
But he is so embedded in the studio system. He's worked in the system for almost 35 years. He worked for Cinefantastique magazine, which I loved. I read a lot of his articles back when he was with them. And he's worked in the studio system for Sony, all of them, really. He's done a lot of work. And he absolutely has this great network. And he pops these stories and scoops. And people call it bullshit on him. But later, it's like, yeah, he was right. He fucking nailed it. He fucking nailed it.
Well, I don't have the specifics of stuff, but I know the zeitgeist and the way people think, both in business. I've been in business for so long. There's no difference in the way people think. It's just that they're a bit more twisted in Hollywood. And I know
exactly.
I spent 3 years with them, but it's exactly the same shtick. So
here's the scoop. If you look on the screen, you can see
I saw that.
Warner Brothers Discovery wants Zack Snyder for the R-rated DC Black Label films.
DC Black.
And what we were talking about is the fact that Keith and I look at things, and Keith is that guy that has a murder board in his closet with red yarn connecting people who did what. And he's always blown me away because he's so right on so much stuff. And that's why we started doing this show. Technically, our show started as panels at comic conventions. Because I'm a comic book artist. I work in the comic industry as well as in the film industry as a storyboard artist and production artist. So,
they just had me because I was, the nearest black guy.
The coolest nerdy black guy they could find. And
they needed a face. That's what they needed.
Yeah,
that was Keith.
And
they couldn't find 24, so they got me.
Right, and when Keith and I met, the first thing I said to him was, "Hey man, I have no black friends. Would you be my black friend?" And he's like, "Yeah, I need a cracker." Yeah. We started hanging out and became BFFs and all that shit. And we started doing those panels, and some people kept saying, "You need to do a show," so we do a show. And it's fun. We're more irreverent than Midnight's Edge, but we are the illegitimate child of Midnight's Edge and Doomcock. And I'm sure you know who Doomcock is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like basically, and Gary from Nerdrotic, technically. We have the protein shake from those three shows to make our show.
People keep asking me whether I'm Doomcock's dad, and I said, no, I'm just the cock.
And of course, Tom's still in the chat.
Oh, look at Tom. There he goes.
Yep. He said he's going to join us here shortly, but that's what we're talking about today. And the fact that Keith and I theorize that JJ is going to end up on HBO while Zack Snyder ends up helping manage, not managing, but helping manage the cinematic. Because David Zaslav loves it.
The idea of creating an R-rated, specifically an R-rated DC stream is a brilliant thing to announce. It makes you cool.
Right.
Like, bang, what an amazing thing to just, pull out of your ass. That's a really, really good, that just shows your hip, if I can use that word.
Hip to be square. Hold on, I got to show this. Here we go. Peter Venkman fansite says, Gary recruiting black friends. There
was a question for me along there. I'll have to pick them up along the way there.
Yeah. Oh, was there one in the chat? Quick, Martin, you are in charge of the chat. Where is the question for him?
Oh, there it is.
There it is. Your Muslim uncle. Assalamu alaikum again, my friend. Gary, I have a question for Mr. Chato. First of all, motherfucker, spell the name right.
That's okay.
It seems like there's a big thing because people fuck up my name all the time.
Well, they go Chato because they think it's Chato. Never mind. Two T's. I mean, it follows.
It seems like there's a lot of young people without same mindset. How do we get execs in the industry to come our way?
Well, the exec thing is very interesting because I have found that good people can get polluted by becoming executives. I mean, it's not without precedent that talented individuals have been recruited by the studios and then given positions of responsibility. But the whole business is so screwed up that good people can just burn out. They can become pussies. I mean, they suddenly everything that was good about them is drained. There's only a handful of people like a Robert Evans or people like that, that can somehow survive and still be able to create quality product. It's tough. I took some really talented playwrights and told them to write sitcoms, and then they started writing imitation of sitcoms, and I couldn't get them out of it. It seems that every single thing has its own power, its own aura to not distort. What's it to not pollute? I don't know. I can't think of the word. But
osmosis.
No, not as well. It just destroys. I mean, you got to be a certain kind of person to be able to work within every single milieu, and I can't put my finger on it.
So
corrupts, infects.
It corrupts, yeah. I mean,
there's the word. Yeah, corrupts.
Yeah, corrupts. And I was an executive for 3 years up here in Canada, and I was being interviewed for a job, a vice president job at Paramount. And an incident happened at the Polo Lounge. So I went, oh my God, my soul is being sucked out. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to do my other love, computing. And I just stopped. I just absolutely gave up, stopped, because I realized I was becoming the player. I could feel it.
Is it kind of like when you have a person who's working hard on, an employee, they're working hard. Then they say, hey, come to management. They come to management, and basically they become a suit. They lose the soul. They lose touch of what they were, their fellow employees.
Yeah, and the people who can maintain their soul, that's a very special person. That's what I learned.
Mm-hmm.
And I found I was losing my soul. I was one of the things that you learn when you're an executive in business, but also in Hollywood, is that at the very beginning, you imitate the worst traits of your boss.
Oh, that is so true.
And then hopefully you can grow out of it as you become confident in your decision-making process and your ability to communicate with people. But at the very beginning, you imitate the worst traits of the people you're working for, because you think that is the way you need to treat other people. It's wrong, but you don't know that at the time. That's part of the problem.
Well, exactly. And, just from my personal experience, when I worked as a paramedic, I quit being a paramedic because I realized after a certain period of time, you can become very desensitized to people's pain.
Well, there's that too.
And you lose your sense of empathy. And my empathy is really such a core part of me. I quit being a paramedic just because of that reason. Because I didn't want to become my partner at the time, who just was a soulless, empty fucking human being. And I'm like, no, I don't want to ever become that paramedic.
But maybe that's what was needed to be a paramedic.
I think it is, sadly, when you deal with so much horror and gore. But I couldn't do it. I went back into nursing, and just because I needed that break. But once my art career took off, I quit all of it. Because you got to have a career to help pay the bills while you're the thing you really want to do is building, and you know how that works.
But death is funny.
I think it is. I have a very dark sense of humor.
Well, a very good friend of ours came by and said they're just having a birthday party for her dad. They don't know how much longer he's going to live, and it was a really difficult time she had a hard time finding a birthday card. I said, why don't you just get a condolences card and tell him to keep it until he needs it?
There you go.
And she said, you're cruel. I went, yeah.
Oh, I made it known that when I go, because every time you see the obits, you say, so-and-so died after a courageous battle. I wanted to sit back and say, the Baron died from a cowardly battle, and then just go from there. It's like, and I told many friends, if you don't laugh at how I die, I am going to come back and haunt you.
Yeah, it's, Norm Macdonald talked about that shit way before he died. Basically, if you lost the battle, you're kind of a pussy. You lost the battle, but the cancer didn't win. It died with you. You took the cancer with you. And Ian Chris was making these jokes while fighting cancer.
Spike Milligan from the Goons on his tombstone has, I told you it wasn't a cold.
I love that one. I do want to show that again. Show Pat's comment there, Martin. Gary sold his soul for a complete set of Return of the Jedi Topps cards and tuna sandwich. And I'm going to tell you something. You're not far from the truth, my friend. You are not far from the truth. Pat, of course,
and
is
he
our
got
producer.
food poisoning.
Pat is our producer and is absolutely an awesome dude. Thank you for mocking me.
It was,
all right, you can take it off.
It was half of a tuna sandwich and a chewed up piece of gum.
Yeah. Well, it was Topps gum.
Yeah,
It's like,
man.
yeah, it cracks in your mouth. There's no such thing as chewing. You crack it in your mouth. Anybody who collected Topps cards fucking knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
2 seconds of flavor.
I have the
Grim,
full set of the
Grim
Apollo
is here.
cards.
Grim is here. Welcome, Grim. How are you doing, my friend?
Hi, Grim.
Grim says, call me Chato question. In the current political, ideological charged zeitgeist that is modern entertainment. Oh, wait, I should do it as proper Englishman because he is English. Charged zeitgeist that it is modern entertainment as a former network executive from your decades of experience. Who's your favorite waifu?
Waifu. Get it right, Gary. It's waifu.
No, English people don't know how to pronounce things. Shut up.
I have to admit, I don't know what's a waifu. Is that an anime reference?
I have no idea. I was hoping
I
you
can
knew.
explain this. Yes,
Grim
a
is a
waifu
super smart
is
dude, man.
basically it's the girl in an anime series that would basically like be your wife.
Okay.
Best girl, or or in or it would be Ginger or Marianne on Gilligan's Island, like the girl that you think is
Right,
the most.
Okay, I just read the
green,
yeah.
right,
Okay, there's always the girl that you can hardly talk to, and the blue water droplet appears on your forehead. Ding!
Yes.
Or
the nose starts to bleed.
That's not the girl with the. There's always one girl with large breasts in every anime. That's bouncy. That's mandatory.
God bless them.
God bless.
Amen.
Well, exactly. And just so you see, because Parrot Head just said something. I sold my soul years ago to the U.S. Army as a combat medic, and I absolutely did. I really did. I love wearing my hat. I'm very pro veteran. You see my little combat medic hat. I like to wear it. And so back into the show here, guys. Really, when it comes down to it, my concern is can the entertainment industry, because we've been talking about the death of cinema, the way it's going, with streaming, the way it works, and with the way we can now perceive our entertainment on giant TV screens, to where you can almost get the cinematic experience right at home. And with the streaming wars leading into COVID, it really did damage to the movie theater experience. I'm amazed that Spider-Man No Way Home absolutely proved us kind of wrong that cinema can't survive. But is cinema going to be changed forever to where people will only go see big blockbuster films? And because of ticket prices going way up, people aren't going to want to go see Love Story. They're not going to want to go see movies like that. They're wanting to see epic drama films like The Godfather. I'm sure they would go see films like that. But what do you think's going on? And by the way, welcome. Tom is in the show right now, eating his Taco Bell. That's why he's being quiet.
Taco Bell.
What was that?
That was Tom.
That's
that was Tom. I was like, what the fuck?
Was that gas?
It's an interesting question. What was the hardest decision you ever had to make as an executive? Wow. The hardest decision I had to make was to hold on to some Canadian expats. That's what I was doing, was bringing up people with Hollywood experience. And the only way I could get them into the show was to give them a bit more creative control over the decision-making of the show. And it was the biggest mistake made. So
I get that. I totally get that.
So while I am a supreme supporter of the creatives out there, everyone needs to pull their own weight and do the best job they possibly can within their own within their own space. And I gave the person too much control, and I fought for that person to my bosses and my reward was that they became a complete asshole and then hated my fucking guts. And I went, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Like, why would I put myself out to just be hated by everyone? Yeah, people will. What is it? They want an inch, but then become a ruler or something like that.
Yeah,
Give him
give
an
the
inch,
devil an
take a
inch, it
mile.
becomes your ruler. Yeah, I've seen that on many those sign things out in front of churches. But going back to what I was saying is basically,
Admit
what
it,
do you
Gary,
see?
you've been to too many Alcoholic Anonymous.
Yes, it's true.
I've got some thoughts on that, but let's hear from other people on the movie theater thing. I've got some thoughts.
Well, I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. What is there a survival plan for theatrical releases, and what do you see with all the damage done over the last decade with wokeism to entertainment? Can entertainment survive?
Well, those are questions.
They are two questions.
Are you asking me?
Yes, sir. I am.
So a couple things. Number one is you don't always know where things are going from a technological perspective, because the movie studios fought the Sony Betamax when it came out, and then when they realized that, oh my God, we can actually recover money on movies that didn't make any money. So I wouldn't rely on the studios to be the vanguard of how things are going to work in the future, because they don't know dick. I mean, all they're doing is they're spending so much time protecting their heinies that they can't see the forest for the trees, and so I don't know what's going on. What we're going to have, I think, is kind of an amalgam of everything, and people love going out. When you go out to see a movie, you're actually being with a bunch of people who are not so much, I mean, they're partly interested in the movie, but they're interested in going out. That's really what it's all about. I mean, they love going to restaurants, they want to get drunk, they want to go to a movie, and I don't think that's ever going to change. So what's going to be in the movie? So are we going to see are we going to see I don't know, some like any of the Diabolique or some wonderful special movie that made going to a movie the cinema really special? I don't know. But on the other hand, we now have an opportunity for a small movie to have more eyeballs see it at home. So that's the plus side. I that piece of that puzzle I don't think has been fully realized. But if you've got a small film and you had the theaters gave you a 1 week run and then that was it, you were done. But now you can actually get distribution on Rumble and other places like that. So I'm interested in how this is all going to play out for everybody, and where is it all going to settle? Yeah, the movie theaters could become just spectacle. Lions eating Christians. That could be the way this evolves.
Yeah,
I hope it doesn't. I
agree.
I don't.
Yeah, if I may, Gary, real quick.
Yeah, Brandon, go for it, buddy.
Thank you. When it goes to the movies, here are the movies that I have seen in theater over the past 8 months. I went and saw Spider-Man 3 times, and I normally don't go and see a movie more than once in the theater. But I did go and see it 3 times because it fits into that spectacle realm, and it deserved it because it was a good movie, and it was great. I also went and saw The Northman Theater. The reason I went and saw that movie in the theater is because that is the type of movie that needs to be seen in the theater, just like Top Gun Maverick needs to be seen in the theater. I believe that that they can make the movie specifically for the theater and push it that way, and then they can also still have the more some of the more artsy film type shows. Like in this day and age, comedy is more artsy now than anything because they almost don't exist. But move or transition to some of the smaller cinemas. As an example, I went and saw The Northman in my locally owned theater, and it was the best experience I could have because it wasn't expensive. It was only like $5 to get in to see it, and I could get my popcorn and drink for $5. Those are the type of cinemas that we need to support that do the first run showings, and we need to help them get some of these more artsy type shows that don't have the big production studios behind them, to start showing those and to start specializing in those, or to specialize in something like a Fathom event where you get shows that come back for just a limited engagement because of an anniversary, or things that typically wouldn't be seen in the theater. That's where I think that is going to be going, and that's something that I believe that we do need to support and push, besides the spectacles.
If I piggyback off of Brandon on that one.
Yeah, buddy.
Okay, so I remember back, because I love going to movies, and for me, I think the last movie I can sit back and say I saw the Dune film, and I loved it. But the long suffering, I don't go out to see movies much. Of course, it costs so much to get out there, and we don't really have any of the small local ones. They're all these megaplexes. And I remember when the megaplex thing started, they kept on saying we had to have all these theaters so we can show more movies in there. We're not being able to keep up. And I remember walking, after they sat back and said that, I walked by the Edina 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 of the movies was Mission Impossible and one other film. And I'm thinking, well, if that's the case, why is it Mission Impossible and not 3 different other films? You're not giving a variety out there, and if you have these megaplexes, what a perfect opportunity to devote at least one theater to something you call the art film, or something that's not as well known. Yeah. Because at least around here, the art films, you have to go down on Lake Street and your feet stick to the ground. It's not because of the popcorn in the soda pop. Exactly, you don't want to go to that theater. And I was always irritated by that, and that argument always rung hollow to me. It's like, devote one of your theaters. If you have 16 theaters, you can devote at least one to something out there to awaken something in us that's not the typical norm. An art film, a foreign film. I would have loved to have seen Space Battleship Yamato in the theater, but nowhere's around. I would have loved to have seen Dread 2012 in the theater. Nothing around. It's always, we got 16 theaters, and 5 of them have Star Wars.
I don't think the Plex owners are not clever people. We do the website for a ticketing system company, and it's really about the bottom line. These are not people who enjoy cinema at all. But I completely agree with you. Why couldn't a 16 Plex have in one of their cinemas the French Connection? Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like, holy smokes! Like, what is the problem of bringing back McCabe and Mrs. Miller?
Well, you do get the Fathom events once in a while, but to answer the overall question, I think here's the thing: is multiplexes, these AMCs, these other companies, they got 20 teenagers to pay, and if you put a small indie film in one Cineplex, that's one Cineplex that's going to have 3 people sitting in it for 3 hours, and that's not going to pay anybody's bills. That's the main reason why.
You don't think that if you promoted yourself and said, look, every single week we're going to bring an Oscar winner back, and get it out to the people who love movies.
That's kind of what Fathom has been doing through some of the bigger cinemas. But like the thing is, with like a lot of the art house pictures, streaming has kind of killed that whole market. But at the same time, it's such a niche audience usually that it's not the same audience that the Cineplex serves.
Well, right? But also niche.
It's like
you can't find Harold and Maude streaming.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you can to a point, but I get what you're saying. Like, here's my thing though: is it's like you're trying to make filet mignon for people at McDonald's, right? It's like you're trying to introduce it to the McDonald's menu, and people just are going to look at you like, "Are you insane?" Because nobody's going to want to go see that kind of crap at a Cineplex, but. That's what they'll say, but at the same time, I agree with you that there should be these options out there. When you have 16 theaters, there's no reason one couldn't be carrying an indie film, but that's the fear, and that's the problem.
But I'm not even talking about indie film. I'm talking about, let's say, Polanski's The Tenant. Scary fucking movie.
Classic movies.
Yeah.
If I may real quick, I got another local theater here that's just two screens. At the beginning of the COOF and all of that, when everybody else was shutting down, they decided to open, and instead of showing new movies, they showed for like a week or two the Goonies, all of the Harry Potter films. Indiana Jones. They went into the pantheon of what movies were movies from the 70s and 80s and even some from the 90s, and did a whole week of them.
But you're still
That's
talking
how
about
they
mainstream
survived.
movies. That's the thing. Paul's talking about very, underappreciated, undersung films that were probably big hits at the time, like Harold and Maude. I know for sure was a bigger film at the time. But like that's the thing. If it's not Die Hard, if it's not Indiana Jones, they're not going to give.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I was talking about previously. Is because of the price of tickets, and look, I want to point out that the way theaters stay open is through sales of merchandise concessions. They don't make very much off of the movie releases. And George Lucas really murdered movie theaters in many ways when he released the prequel trilogy. It changed the landscape for theaters, how they make money. And so they weren't getting the percentages they used to get anymore. So concessions, you saw prices go up, and that's how they're able to hire people and keep their doors open, keep the air conditioning going. And
Gary is right. And I brought this up before because people are like, oh, Disney's greedy. It's like Disney didn't start that. It was George Lucas when he did The Phantom Menace. He wanted 75% of the box office.
Well, he took 100 for several weeks.
Yeah, for like the first week, he ended up getting like 90 or something like that. But
it was ridiculous.
Jeez.
Yeah, so he was the first one to really do that. And you're not wrong, Gary. All the things we complain about in theaters are a direct result of that. The studio is getting more and more greedy.
I recall that and actually almost not going to the prequels because I thought, wow, he's being really nasty.
Yeah, and so when you go to a theater now, it's like I walked up with my daughter once to go see G.I. Joe, not G.I. Joe, I'm sorry, A-Team, because I did the comic book with Chuck Dixon for the A-Team. And so we're going to go see the movie, and I went over, I got a chili dog with relish and a drink for both Zoe and me, and it was $38.
Yep.
I was like, I'm like, does this come with a midget? It's like, I think I should be getting a little more than just the 2 hot dogs and the fucking drink.
I do wonder. I got one thing I do wonder about with all this. Because we're doing this comparison like for food and everything else when it comes to the theaters. Why is it that every movie, the ticket for every movie seems to be the exact same price? It's the equivalent of like if the place was serving filet mignon and a Big Mac, and you went in and it's like, how much is the filet mignon? $13. How much is Big Mac? $13. You're gonna get the filet mignon. You're gonna get the thing that's the
well, we've already got an answer to your question, Shanatsky.
Because you're spending the same amount.
Yeah,
we've already got an answer to your question, Shanatsky, and that's the IMAX. That's the premium experience, right? It's the theater itself, not so much the movie, because you're right. Like, this is the strangest industry in the world where you pay, when it first started, you paid the same amount for every ticket, no matter what it was. And I don't know if we'll get to a point where they'll change that, because we've already seen it with a few movies here where they jacked up the ticket prices for the film itself. So likely that will change. But on the other side of this, though, Gary is 100% right about the fact that theaters, with the way that they've been running, all the complaints we have are because of the studios. But at the same time, the studios did everything they could to kill theaters during COVID. And theaters still managed to stay alive. And what that did, and when I told people, and this was at the beginning, was that studios are going to realize they need the theaters a lot more than the theaters need the studios. People laughed at me. And I'm like, no, because the theaters will adapt. They didn't start with movies. They started with vaudeville and other shows. And then it became the movie theater eventually. So eventually it may become something else. They show sports now. They show concerts. They show classic films like Paul's bringing up. May not show Harold and Maude, but they do show classic films like Indiana Jones and stuff like that when the Fathom events come around and stuff like that. And throughout the COVID, you're right. There was those choice films they had that they could re-release, and they did very well. And that just went to show that, if you put something in theaters that people want to see, they will get off their butt and they will go out and see it. And a big part of it is, like Paul's saying too, I agree. People want to go out. They don't want to just sit at home and watch a movie. When they do that, it's fine, whatever it is. But they want to go out. They want to have a night out of town. They want to go have dinner. They want to go see a movie. It's as I brought it before, it's one of the few things that you can do in America that's still cheap. I know we gripe about the prices, but compared to going to a concert, compared to going to some other events, a sporting event, even in some cases, it's a lot cheaper to go see a movie with 2-3 people than it is to go to see a ball game, right? Or something to that effect. It is still a date night that is affordable for a family. You know, that's the other part of it too, because try and take a family to a theme park. Good luck with that. It's not spending $500-600.
Well, yeah,
So very true.
And on that, because when I lived in Los Angeles, there was the New Beverly Cinema. And one of the things that they did, they would sell DVDs behind the counter. So some of the movies you saw, you could buy the DVD for. I don't know why they haven't thought of doing this. Hey, did you like Top Gun? When you go if you go to the counter after, you could pre-order and maybe get a couple bucks off the DVD or Blu-ray. Sell that shit when people are excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree. Well, let's phrase this into a question, then, guys. For Paul to answer, because he's just sitting there looking at us like, "Are you guys talking, or am I going to be talking?" There you go.
I don't need to talk. You can put up.
We just love looking at that lovely face, Mister.
You can put up the full, the Hollywood Squares screen. I'm embarrassed by being highlighted so much.
Well, we learned this. We learned this from Tom from Midnight's Edge. One of the other things we stole from Tom was making your guests large, so when they say something really interesting, it's easier to clip.
Gary, we didn't mean this kind of large. We meant give him a handy before the show.
Oh, is that what?
Yeah.
I kept hearing the word engorged, and I kept like wondering, what does he mean by engorged?
I am sensing a boot to the head here soon.
And it's
a hit with the gunnels.
Well, exactly. And I think Script Doctor is trying to get in to join us here. One of you guys bounce and come back in a little bit?
Yeah,
I think that's Script Doctor trying to come in now.
I can do that.
Steven, thank you, man. I appreciate it, buddy. I love you, buddy.
I have to answer Anime Guy's question at some point.
Brandon, answer Brandon's question.
Brandon's still here?
Yeah, I'm still here. Look, I don't even remember what question I had. My brain went blank.
He wanted to know where babies came from.
Yeah, where did babies come from?
That's right.
Let's see.
Right now, I'm rereading Solo Leveling because I loved it so much.
Oh my God, we had Sarah Frazetta yesterday, Frank Frazetta's granddaughter, and so Awesome One is saying that you're not as pretty as Sarah Frazetta, but he's at least interesting, right? Okay,
that's my breasts are bigger.
Can't fight that.
I have
my
moves.
boobs are bigger than hers too. But
I don't know who she is. I'm just joking.
She's amazing. She works in. I worked with her on a comic series, and
is she an artist?
Yeah, she's the first member of the Frazetta family to follow in Grandpa's footsteps.
Man, I loved his posters. Artist. I mean, those would be banned now. You can't have half-naked women holding onto the muscled leg of some guy holding a sword eating a cow. Can't have that anymore.
Exactly. Hey, whoever is trying to jump in. You can jump in now.
I think Gap Stargate had a question. It's in our starred comment section there, Gary.
I missed it. Martin's in charge of that. Martin Acosta Santana is in charge of the chat. So ask Martin.
Martin starred in the chat. That Gap Stargate. I think there we go.
Yeah, back to that question. Here we go.
Okay, when you mention eyeballs on smaller films, made me think of ratings. What's your thoughts on the rating system for streaming services and television? I think that they're out of date. Well, the technology, again, what's interesting is that individual rights owners for almost anything almost always want to be proprietary. And then some kind of government fiat forces them to, come together and join, and then eventually it falls apart again. So right now, we had a fairly good rating system, but the people who are on streaming don't want to tell you anything. So now that's falling apart. And that just makes it difficult for people in the industry to really tell you just the performance of what's happening. We do know that network television is dying, but it would be really nice to have the people who are streaming to throw in with Nielsen and actually tell us what the
The
numbers
numbers are
But-
because they're being very deceptive. Disney
Correct.
absolutely is known for lying. Pat, I thought it was Script Doctor because he's trying to get in.
Well, I'm only going to ask a question quick because Script
Yeah, go
probably
for
is
it.
trying to get in. But I've been dying to ask Paul this, and I'd love for
Sure.
Tom and 24 and the rest of the panel to weigh in on it too. I've only heard this concept presented one time. I don't know if I like it or not, but I did find it kind of fascinating. What is everybody's thoughts, especially you, Paul, on this whole idea of taking these arenas where they have like NBA basketball and the hockey and all played, and actually having an opening weekend night where they show 2 shows on Friday, 3 shows on Saturday, a matinee on Sunday, and they sell out to like as many people as can fit into that theater, and having like exclusive merchandise and things like that, and having it where it's like a real event. I don't know if that would help or hurt the little theaters, because there's also the argument that they said, but the next week it would go to the smaller theaters and people would be able to see it for a lot less money, but this would be a real experience for them. Like I said, they could, they already have the concessions set up, and they could certainly sell exclusive merchandise. So I'm going to hop off and listen to y'all's answer and chat in case Script tries to jump on, but I've been dying to get some feedback on that for months now.
Good question, Pat. Thanks a lot, man.
Well, I think in all those giant venues, what they should do is put LCDs in the back of the seat in front of them like an airplane. And we all go 10,000, 15,000 people just to have an airplane experience. That's what I want.
I used to love to fly, but not now.
Let's
And actually,
watch movies in an airplane, man.
So
I do have.
We're this all goes back to Edmonton Mall, which stuck a roller coaster in its mall, and then there's a book I talked about in one of my videos on being entertained to death. Everything is now part of the entertainment function. Dentist offices are trying to be entertaining. There's nothing that isn't trying to be entertaining. So, from my perspective, sure, why not? I mean, I know that the theaters here do really well when they show live opera from the Met.
Yes.
So that's super clever marketing. And you're talking about not getting people to go see Harold and Maude in one of the theaters. The theaters are full, packed here. At least one theater is packed when they do the live from the Met operas. So, I mean, that's out there. Isn't that an outlier?
That is true. It is.
I remember hearing stories back in the 50s. One of the sports writers here was saying that he lived way out in middle of nowhere's Minnesota, but they would have the big boxing event would be happening, but it'd be like in New York. So he'd be saddled into the car with his dad, drive out to the cities. They go into the arena and they have the big, huge TV screens in there, and they're watching the boxing event from like one of the small arenas here in Minnesota, even though it was being telecasted into from New York or from LA or wherever the event was. So what Pat was saying kind of reminded me of that.
My grandfather had the same thing. He told me that him and some buddies would go to one of our, I don't remember what the place it was, but they would have the closed circuit TV feed, and they would watch the big events that way. Basically, olden time pay-per-view, so to speak. But I do want to touch upon the rating system again, because this is something that is a problem in this country. Our TV ratings, our movie ratings, and our game system ratings are all way off. When you look at stuff coming from Europe, they have what's called the PEG. They don't have just your for everybody 10, teen, mature, adult only. They have a rating for each and every a more specific age group. So is this good for people 3 and up, 5 and up, 7 and up, and then to an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old? I can tell you, for at least with my kids, there's a massive difference in what I let them watch between when they were 11 versus now with her being at 13. But they also have some in-betweens from that PG-13 and the 13 age up to the 17. They have a 15. And some of their TV shows and some of the games, they can push a little harder on the 15 and still get the sales without having to go to the 17 or having that big of a separation. So it almost feels like, to me, we need to rethink the whole TV, the whole movie, the whole game rating structure, and really break it down to maybe a total of 6 to maybe 7 ratings groups. And then once you hit that spot, stay consistent with it and not deviate with it, like how they used to with PG. With PG, you used to be able to have some nudity. You could say the F word. You could have all those things in a PG movie.
You can
Whereas
say it one
now,
time, but it can't be in the sexual context in a PG.
yes, exactly. Whereas in PG, that's now a PG-13 film, and you don't get very many PG films. They're just not common. And then you definitely don't get any G films these days, because what is G?
Even though
no one wants to do it.
Statistically, throughout the history of cinema, G-rated films did the best in the box office. But they step away from it because they want to be edgy and they want to draw that adult audience. But hey, I wanted to welcome Script Doctor to the show. I don't know how long you can stay. Deleted, hopped out so you could jump in, and then Pat took your spot, and but you're finally here. You and of course Paul know each other. And
yeah, of course, everyone in Canada knows each other.
Yes, it's a Canadian thing.
He's my neighbor, just down the town.
That's right.
But I wanted to see if you had any questions or opinions to share with us while Paul is on the show.
Well, I'll put it to you this way, to go a little bit off of what the anime guy was saying. One question audiences need to ask, and also producers need to ask, is: are we selling the story, or are we selling the rating? Because that's the thing. Like, we've seen a lot of certain IPs that are being touted for, like, we want an R rating of this, we want an R rating of Batman, we think Deadpool needs to be an R rating, and all that stuff with regards to those IPs. The question is the R rating really necessary, or is telling a better story that's marketable to the greatest audience more lucrative? And we got only a handful of really well-made films that had an R rating that did cross those huge box office parts. Like, even the movie like Joker, I would argue you could probably get away with that as a PG-13 and not lose anything, really, with regards to what the character arc is, what their struggle is, things that people really gravitated towards while watching that film. Had nothing really to do with language, and I don't recall any nudity or any sexual violence in those in that film. To me, I think the R rating is really just a kind of a signal that you're probably going to get a little bit of nudity in language, but it should be irrelevant in that regard if you're telling a really great story.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying, because you're also saying that it's over and misused.
In some cases, like, for instance, the most recent episode of The Boys, the first episode of that, that's an X-rated, man, and that does some things that I think is quite frightening and doesn't really need to be shown.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I'm looking forward to seeing it this weekend.
But it's there for shock value more so than it is for actually being like a really. We don't need to see some of those things in order to have a good story, but I understand why they did it, because it gets people talking. And if you need people to talk about that one point and not the rest of what's going on in your story, you might actually have a problem with your marketing and with your writing strategy of things of that nature. Because I grew up in a household where my parents did not care about the rating at all. I grew up watching Saturday Night the Movies at TVO, and anything that my parents felt like renting that night from the video store. And like, I saw Cape Fear when I was like 7, and it didn't damage me at all, because I was at a young age. I learned very early on that movies are fantasy. That they're, even whatever you're seeing on the screen is not actually happening in real life. Yeah. But like, it's not so much about the R rating. For my parents, it was like, oh, is this a story that our kid, that we would like and that we think our kid would enjoy? And that's probably one of the reasons why I never really had any Disney movies growing up in my childhood at home. If I saw a Disney film, it was at school when there was a substitute teacher. Like, in my house, I saw Hitchcock.
Yeah, because you and I have talked about this before, and I think it's probably for the same reason. I watched what my dad watched.
Yeah, I missed that. Needs to come back. The kids have to start watching what their parents are watching and get no say in it anymore.
Yeah.
I think I can sort of answer your question with another question. Which is easier to do? Just give it an R rating, or actually work on making a good story?
Well, I mean, I remember being a kid, being taken to see Murder by Death. I believe that was an R-rated film, and that was
That's a
7, 8.
big movie that Keith and I talk about often.
Yeah,
Murder by
Yeah,
Death,
without
Murder
it,
by
you
Death.
would not have Clue.
yeah, and
That's
obviously the R rating is because you had Truman Capote in there, but that's beside the point. But honestly, what's the difference between Star Trek: The Motion Picture and the redone of the Star Trek: The Motion Picture? Basically, the only thing is it's cleaning up. But yet, when Star Trek: The Motion Picture came out, it was G rated. Now it's PG. What
That's
difference was
because
there between the films?
there's been a big shift. Well, first of all, the ratings are always kind of fluid with whatever the culture is at the time. I mean, they used to rate a film more on its subject matter than little bits and pieces of what were or weren't in the film necessarily, let's say. But then you get to like now where they got into that huge argument over the King's speech over the F word, right? It's like nothing in that movie constitutes it being rated R. The F word scene is not sexual in any way. There's no reason to rate that movie R. See, that's the thing. They lost the idea of how to actually rate these films. There's a great documentary. It's getting old now, but it still stands as far as I'm concerned. It's called "This Film Is Not Yet Rated," and it gets into the whole idea of how the rating system works and how broken it really, really is. And PG-13, for all the good that it brought us, it also was kind of the killing of the modern film, right? It really, or should I say, the modern adult film. Right, because studios quit wanting to make movies like Paul brought up earlier, like Harold and Maude, because, well, that wouldn't, although that film would be like an R-rated film, it may not be now. It may only be PG-13, but it's not going to sell to a certain audience, right? Like, even sexual things, depending on the type of nature of what's being told, it could probably fall in a PG-13 category, but we don't know because they're the ones who make up the rules, and the rules are all dictated by them, and other people who have talked about before, Trey and Matt from South Park have really blown the lid off them, right? Like they said, when they dealt with them with Orgasmo and some of their earlier films, it was a fucking nightmare because they wouldn't tell them what was wrong with the film. They would just tell them it's rated NC-17, fix it, and send it back. But when they worked with the studio with Basketball and South Park, the movie, they saw a completely different system to where they were actually getting literal notes and stuff like that, and they're like, well, this isn't how it's supposed to work. It's like, yeah, but you're in the studio system now, kid. That is how it works. So they thought that was unfair, right? Because this is a completely a stacked system against anybody who's not affiliated with a studio, basically. And it's politics. Unfortunately, it's not set up in any way, shape, or form based on any real rules.
Well, Midnight Cowboy was X-rated when it came out. Now it's an R-rated film. X-rated films became so synonymous with XXX, they had to come out with NC-17. Now we have it's just so screwy,
And then that didn't matter either because then theaters wouldn't carry NC-17 films, so it completely defeated the purpose of changing the rating.
Exactly.
A major reason why everything is so different now is that we are not a literary society. You have to understand where we're getting things from, how we are adapting things, books, plays, articles out of magazines. These are all sources of films for a lot of films before the 1970s. And as we go into the 1970s, you'll notice the kinds of books that were being adapted, the kinds of articles and other things that they were adapting things from had a little bit more of an edge. Once you get into the 70s, you're going after books and other things that hadn't really been given an opportunity because of the subject matter, whether it be violent, sexual in nature, or other things. And now we've found our way here as we've stopped reading. And it's had an effect on television, film, comics, everything. We are watching our society and how we entertain ourselves are all being changed.
It's part of the whole dumbing down of society. I know what you're talking about.
Yes, it definitely is.
It's like I'll say things to people or talk about an author or a book, and to young people in particular, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm like, oh my God, I was younger than you when I read that. That should be,
well, I mean, Lord of the Rings is a good example. That was actually considered a kid's book.
Well, you're right.
And now but I mean, now you got people going, well, you can't read that because it's like, well, who says? I mean, we're changing how that goes. If you're making if you're holding it until someone's in high school to read that book, another good one is Dune. Dune has a lot of concepts in it, but I mean, that was actually,
well, on the opposite end of the spectrum, as far as ratings go, Barbarella. That movie is not like a PG in this day and age at all.
It's not.
Well, I enlarged because I saw that you had something to say there, Paul.
No, I am enlarged. Thank you.
You're engorged.
I'm engorged.
Just by coming onto the show.
Good job, Tom.
I just I'm using my Stay Hard cream. The I think there's I mean, oh my God. What you said was so. I mean, I think that's really powerful. People aren't reading.
Oh, what Keith was saying?
Yeah, not enough people are reading, and what they're reading is also changed enormously. I read my kids Huckleberry Finn, and that's a tough read.
It was the first book I ever read.
Oh, okay. You're a
Tom
smart
Sawyer
person.
and Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah, but they're also Tom Sawyer is much easier to read than Huckleberry Finn. Huckleberry Finn is like I don't know what they would consider, what level of grade, but that was considered a kid's book at the time. Mm-hmm. And then I remember many years later reading Dan Brown's the Da Vinci thing, and I went, oh my God, this was written for a 5-year-old. Like, I couldn't believe how bad the English was in it. I'm going, I am never going to read another one of Dan Brown's books again, because his writing was so, I don't know, it was just terrible. I couldn't handle it. And then the poetry of a Kurt Vonnegut, the poetry of Mark Twain, and you're going, holy smokes.
He didn't miss much, because he, at one book, he eventually goes, yeah, you know what? Population control is a good idea.
Wow. Dan Brown said that?
The plot of his book, one of his books, I forget the exact one. It was the one like the Illuminati that they did the sequel to. The plot is a person releases a virus to make it so a certain percentage of the population can't reproduce. In other words, population control. And that's a good thing in the novel.
How many of his books have you read, Shnatsky?
What was that?
How many books did he have? How many Dan Brown books have you read, Shnatsky?
I didn't read. Cameron talked to me about that. So.
Okay. I
have a question for
Keith is absolutely right.
I have a question for Paul from my Scottish friend, that 70s. I said 70s show. Fuck.
That 70s rock fan.
Yeah, rock fan.
Yes. Doing a prog rock show.
Paul, would you be interested in doing a prog rock show? And Keith, if he's up for it.
Okay, I'm a huge prog rock fan. Tomita. Oh God, who did I listen to? I mean, obviously, I went to Genesis twice. Oh my God, now I can't hear. The guy with the flute, Jethro Tull, Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Ian Anderson. Is it Ian Anderson or Ian Underwood? I can't remember.
Ian Anderson.
Anderson. Yeah.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, Mr. Anderson. Yeah, you're talking about my stuff too, man.
Oh no, prog rock. I'm so there. Larry Fast, a huge fan of that stuff.
Peter Gabriel.
Yes, of course. Yes, Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, I was
Gentle Giant. I'm a huge Gentle Giant fan. If you want to get into prog rock.
You ever listen to Marillion? They were a big Genesis fan band, and then they went on their own. And
I remember Marillion, and also there's Ministry. Remember Ministry?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Heavy.
Yep.
You weren't into disco.
You know what? I wasn't at the time, but I was huge into George from Parliament.
Oh, George Clinton.
Yeah,
Parliament.
Yeah.
I was so there's disco and then there's funk, and I was a huge funk guy, and I went and saw George Clinton, and I went, oh my God, it's like more fun than you could possibly.
Yeah, I've met him before.
You have?
Like actually, yeah. It's an interesting story if you ever want to hear it.
Well, I would love to hear it. Is he a nice guy?
Well, this is what it was. This is way back in 1998. I had a friend. He's deceased now. His name was MC Thick. He was actually one of the first rappers to ever come out of Marrero, Louisiana. So he had a song that took the loop of Eazy-E, like walking down the street real slow. What the fellas be yelling, Marrero. So he had a big hit. Like whenever you hear from Lil Wayne, Cash Money, Baby, all of them, Master P, they always talk about who's the main pioneer to ever come out to pave the way. It was my friend. His name was Stuart Harris, and he was working on an album out here in Houston, and he had a song called "Smoking on Sticky," and you could probably look it up. His name is MC Thick, and he did the song with George Clinton. So what they ended up doing is they flew George Clinton down from California, and this was before 9/11. So when he showed up, that was when he still had all his braids, all different colors and everything. And so he shows up, and the first thing he asks is, "Hey, where can I get some crack?" And what he pulls out of his pocket was a homemade crack pipe. It was one of those things that he was able. Like I said, they weren't doing all the things that they were doing now. Like if he'd have pulled that shit now, he would have never made it through the airport. So he pulls out this crack pipe and he was like, "Yo, I'm not, I need to feel a certain way before I even start singing." And
that's too bad.
Yeah, we had to go into the hood, get him a few things, and come on back.
Some crack.
And after he took a hit or whatever, while he was smoking, one of his braids unraveled.
Caught fire.
No, unraveled. Like basically he he had extensions.
Yeah.
They were all different colors.
He looked like a lion.
One of them unwrapped and fell on the floor. And we all looked, and we were like we looked down, and we looked at him, and he looked down, and it was a blue one, like one of those and he looked at it, he shrugged his shoulders, and like he didn't give a fuck, and he walked into the studio and started singing.
Wow, dude! Wow, that's a great story.
And I mean, he was lit as fuck.
He was,
and we were at the studio that Destiny's Child, record, their first, 2 or 3 albums in when they were together. So we were at that studio, and because we, my producer knew Matthew Knowles, and so there's a long story with that and Destiny's Child and Beyonce and all that shit. So, and I know you mentioned Beyonce before. I'm in Houston, so, and Beyonce's from Houston, and there's a lot of history with music and everything else. So, that's my George Clinton story of meeting him. But
George Clinton and funk, I just don't hear that anymore. I'm not hearing any funk anymore. Good funk. I'm missing.
Oh no.
You ever look? When I was a kid, man. I got in so much trouble because my dad heard me doing a song. I was walking around going, "Shit, goddamn, get off your ass and jam." My dad popped his head in my room, go, "What the fuck are you singing?" I was like,
Okay. I'm leaving the room, everyone. I'm leaving. I'm done. I'm leaving.
Well, Gary and Keith, I gotta take off. It was a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Chato. And I do want to say, just from looking at your channel, just a little bit that I have, I do love the old TV guides. I love the old TV series, and I'm a tech guy, so the Hackintosh stuff is of partial interest to me, but since I'm not a Mac person, since supporting them is a royal pain in the ass, it's still a fun topic to talk about. So great to meet you. It's always great to see you, Tom and Script, and of course Baron, you bastard, and Shanotsky, and of course 24/7 Media, my man. Gary and Keith, you take care.
Hey, before you go, Brandon,
take it easy, man.
I will do a show with you anytime. I said it in the private chat. I'll say it out loud.
Thank you.
I love hanging out with you, dude. You're so much.
It was a lot of fun, and if you haven't seen it, go see Goblin Slayer. Tom, you got to see Goblin Slayer.
Goblin Slayer. Oh,
I'll talk to you later, buddy. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, we'll see you later, buddy.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care.
And now, first come, first serve. Steven, deleted scene, 70s show. I mean, 70s rock fan. Now's the moment. The first one to get in.
Speaking of, stuff that can be done, just in the kinds of films that seem to be popular now, you can definitely tell that there isn't as much reading going on. I mean, for me personally, I would still love to see someone try to adapt the Honor Harrington series, either as a television series or even as a series of films, because the stories and the types of characters involved in that, you have people that want to see more women take lead and be central characters. Well, here's an entire book series where that is the case, where you follow a young woman from being a cadet all the way up through her entire military career. And it's a space saga. And it's told very well.
Ender's Game followed the same thing with the kid,
Well, I mean, it's basically, if you are a fan of Star Trek Discovery for some reason,
there's no thing. That does not exist.
Trust me, there are those that have deluded themselves into thinking that they are. I would highly, highly recommend that incredible series from David Weber. Now, let me warn some of you, you might be offended by the fact that this guy is a little more conservative in his views, but these stories are incredible. It's kind of like Star Trek Voyager, but a little more military-based, with a character who has to make a lot of really, really hard decisions all the time, and no Vulcans. Sorry. So,
what you're saying about films have become less literary in of themselves. You think of a movie like French Connection. It feels like you've watched a book.
Yeah,
isn't it? Do you know what I'm talking about? I mean,
Well, that's because they used to actually adapt the books, correct?
But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the way it's structured, the way it's acted, the way it's written. It feels like you have read a book while watching it. Like there's a meaty. I can't explain it. I have watched the French French Connection over and over again. And I think this is one of my problems with. I went back to do some, watch some of my favorite Marvel movies, and I stopped them like 10 minutes through, and I went, you know what? I'm not interested in watching this again. I got the DVD. I watched it once. And I'm trying to think of which modern movie I want to actually watch a second time.
Sorry. So
there's very few, Paul. Well, I agree with you. And the more recent ones that I can even think of are like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is one that feels like a classic film. And you're right. It's more about the characters, the setting. It's a different feeling to it. I can't put my finger on it either.
Iron Man 1 I've watched 10 times. The Matrix I've watched 40. I mean,
well, even Iron Man 1 has a lot more in common with some of those classic films that we've
I totally agree.
Right? And that's where I agree with you. Like, it's been lost. And maybe part of it is that these movies can't stand on their own. I don't know if that's a big part of it. Because, I mean, you look at it like, can somebody just watch Infinity War? Never seeing another Marvel movie, not knowing anything about any of these characters. Can you actually sit down and watch Infinity War? No, I argue you cannot. But you could sit down and watch Empire Strikes Back without ever seeing Star Wars.
Yes. Yep. You could.
See, there's the difference. And I think that's a big problem. And Stan Lee used to know this about comics himself, if you want to even draw a parallel. Because he always said, every comic book is some kid's first comic book. So you have to remember that even if you do it in a small way, you have to reintroduce these characters, you have to reintroduce the world, you have to get them involved in the story somehow without them feeling like they're the old readers feeling like they're revisiting everything over and over and over again. There's a way you can do it, and it's just like a TV show. The old TV shows used to kind of run the same way. You know, we would joke about how everything would reset after 30 minutes, but there's a reason for that. It's so when you jump into the show, it doesn't matter where you come in, you can still enjoy the show and not feel like you're missing a bunch prior to that, right? Like there's that part of it too. But also when a film stands on its own, alone, with its own voice, that says a lot more to me. Like, we have debates and arguments over The Godfather and Godfather 2 for a reason, right? like because those movies can stand on their own in a lot of ways.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
that's the thing.
Well, and that's the reason why you'll have something like, say, Doctor Who. A lot of the older episodes, pre return of Doctor Who.
You're talking back during the original series, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of those episodes are really well done. They may not visually have the effects and the costumes, but they are solidly told stories. I would still, and I know this is going to be a broken record with this, I would still like to see someone tackle and adapt Planet of the Apes. Not the Hollywood version that we got.
Yeah, Pierre Buell.
The actual, the
Monkey Planet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the original Doctor Who had literary people from, of course, Terrence Dix was involved in there, Terry Nation, all these people, and look at all the other shows that they produced out of there with that. And when it comes around to Marvel films, I found for me, one of the most literary ones was Thor. But then you take a look and see that J. Michael Straczynski was one of the writers, Kenneth Branagh was one of the directors. It's like, no wonder why, for me, that film really stood out from the rest of those Marvel films. And I found
you've got it harkens back to what Keith and I have talked about ad nauseum, is that you look back at when Star Trek and Twilight Zone got started. What did those two gentlemen do? They reached out to the best fucking sci-fi writers they could find.
Oh, yeah.
Real authors, guys that really knew how to tell stories, that really knew how to tell morality tales or really speak in I hate using this word, metaphor, because, Jack Nicholson, it's always in my head. People who talk in metaphors can shampoo my crotch. But the fact is, metaphor is a powerful tool when you're writing, and whether it's music or in storytelling. But another thing that's missing in a lot of modern writing is these shows like, oh, we're going to bring Twilight Zone back. And what do? They hire a fucking stand-up comic who is an activist. They don't look for people who know how to tell stories. They know how to weave a tale, that know how to capture an audience's attention and hold on to it. The way
Timeless Stories
and Gene Roddenberry did.
Yeah.
Well, we've got these.
Jordan Peele spent like a decade working on Guess Who. And then all the other subsequent films he worked basically because studios said, we want another one. And he didn't put the same time and effort into that.
Exactly.
And he couldn't have because he was given such a narrow time frame. One of the things that older television models had that I think is kind of fading now, is the characters make the story, not the story makes the characters. We're seeing stories these days make characters as opposed to the other way around. That's why you could watch any episode of Star Trek and understand who these
describing
people are.
How somebody should feel. It's like,
No, that's a different part. That's a different aspect. I'm talking about just the introductory aspect where
I get it.
You can walk into an episode of Star Trek and you understand who those Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are because the characters come through before the story does. Like, that's what drives them. Same thing with a sitcom. You understand what Lucy is doing and how Ricardo is and Ethel and all those people. Those characters come through bigger than what's going on in the story because the characters are driving the story first as opposed to the story driving the characters. And there's a very delicate symbiosis between characters and story because I see this here. I hear this being thrown around a lot. Like, it's plot-driven stories are great. But there's no such thing really as a plot-driven story that's good because if the characters are behaving out of character to facilitate the plot, that's a plot-driven story. But if you have a character that is doing something that contributes to the plot, that's still a character-driven story. But in this current generation, we're conflating them to the point where people think a character-driven story are characters sitting in a room talking about the story, And a plot-driven story is characters in action, not doing much exposition or talking about the story. And because we have those muddied, redefined terms, we're actually losing an essence of what actually drives a story and what we should be focusing on as creatives when creating a story, which is it's complex characters in a very, very simple plot. And the simple plot is, what does this complex character want? And the complexities come out of why they want it and the obstacles of other people that don't want them to have that.
I may have a
when
better
you keep that
example.
thin, it's easier for an audience to follow, and we fall in love with the characters.
Another thing.
Well, I
Another
was going to
thing
say Star
I'd
Trek's
like
a
to
great
add with
example,
that.
but I was going to say maybe a better example of what Script's getting at, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Script. The Looney Tunes. They work because we know their characteristics, and the plots and the jokes work because of them. You can get into
Vaudeville.
Any Looney...
Yeah,
vaudeville.
Exactly. I hopefully that's a better example than what we were already offering, because
It's more appealable. It's more accessible example for kids, especially because within those first few seconds, you understand exactly who Wile E. Coyote is, who the Roadrunner is, who
And you
Elmer
don't
Fudd.
have to watch the very first one to understand what's going on.
Exactly.
You can
Yeah.
pop
Exactly.
in at any time. The biggest mistake I'm seeing now, and I've seen it for years, and you see it in bad writing, is interchangeable dialogue. And
The Joss Whedon effect, I call that.
And okay, I didn't
Quentin
notice
was
that,
notorious
but
for it. Quentin Tarantino was notorious for it too.
and I whenever I write, if another person can say that line in the same way, I either change it or lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the best way to build character is that there's no shareable dialogue. Another person should not be able to say that thing in the same way.
Yep.
And also try to limit the shared point of view. That's the other part too.
Oh yeah.
Keeping those different, as they can have the same goals, but if they have a different point of view, that's where you get some of the best
And
dialogue.
also not reveal what it is that you want. This is the thing, is very few people actually tell what it is, what they mean, because they've got an agenda. Everyone has an agenda, but that's another thing. And you take a look at a movie like one of the best written movies of all time, When Harry Met Sally. There is not an interchangeable line in that movie.
Nope.
And every line expands on the character.
Oh yeah, and one of the things that I especially enjoy in certain stories is that we see that a character wants something, but it's the why that drives them, the why they want it that drives them, and we don't know what that why is until we get closer to the end, where there's actually something deeper behind it. Like for instance,
and they don't want to come out and say exactly what it is that they want. They'd rather talk around it because they're embarrassed revealing their goal.
Yeah, because there's some sort of vulnerability associated with it, or at least they think there is. Yeah,
They think there is, or it doesn't suit their character. Oh my God, I want to go down on this guy. I can't really say it out.
Well, this fits the next question, because Stephen Ransom wants to know, Paul, what is your take on violence and sexual content? Also for Script Doctor, and what I think this is. I think
Script Doctor should have all the violence and sex. That's my opinion.
I do too. In fact,
I do with my girlfriend. It's
to
none of your
him.
business.
I think he should have all the violence and sex done to him.
Bloody.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say bloodied and orgasmically happy, I suppose.
Well, again, what is violence and what is sexual content? Everyone has a different limit. If you
doesn't.
What's the Marlon Brando movie?
Last Tango in Paris.
Last Tango in Paris.
Okay, so is that a dirty movie?
It is. In a way, it really is.
Paul brings up a great point, and this goes back to the rating argument as well.
Yeah.
Is like who is the arbiter of what is moral in this case or that case, or what should be rated this or what should be rated that, what should be considered this. We had this problem with the whole cuties debate a few months ago.
Created was because people were getting frustrated with the rating system, and what was this movie? What was it? Was it about something, or because is sex part of the story? Is the sexual act that's in it, is it part of the storytelling process, or is it something randomly thrown in for gratuitous getting people to talk thing? Right. And really,
that was HBO. I mean, if you ever saw Westworld,
well, Skinamax for sure.
Well,
But
if you ever saw Westworld season 1, there's one point where they just go to a town and there's orgies going on everywhere. It has nothing to do with the rest of the story for the season. It's just there because someone at HBO has a hard on for that shit.
Well, but I have a theory about that. For those of us that actually watched Westworld and Future World, the films, I'm thinking that the aesthetic that they used in the first season with the whole Westworld concept and how a lot of the abandoned areas, the older parts of the park, all look like they were leftover sets from those films, especially Future World. And so I'm thinking that that was all part of adapting this idea, because it's not a completely original idea. Okay? I think what you were dealing with were people who were fans of the story and the film versions of those stories. And they just sort of combined it all with this new take on everything that they were doing.
I'll be honest, I wasn't enamored with the first year of Westworld. Like, I was kind of pissy. I was like, this is not Westworld.
Well, you're pissy to begin with, Tom.
Well, yeah, I'm pissy. I'm like I'm baseline pissy. And then, like, if you entertain me, I get happy. If you don't entertain me, I get sad.
And as far as the use of sex and violence, I mean, you can go to the Roger Corman school and you put as much into it as you possibly can. I do have a terrific amount of respect for people who can do it without any kind of moral compass and just enjoy it. There's that too. I mean, there's such a wide variety of reasons to entertain people, and there's a wide variety of people who want to be entertained a certain way. So, you know, it's a question of don't go to the stuff that you find offensive. But like I said, I have a terrific amount of respect for people who, you know, can just go for it without any conscience.
Well, and the other thing is about Westworld. You're also talking about a park that when you first come upon it, it's very expensive to go there. So what you're talking about is people who could actually afford
today.
But I mean, uber rich people were the ones that were meant to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you're talking about are people that can afford tremendous sums of money to be able to go and play for 2 weeks, anything that they want to do. Well, of course, there's going to be a lot of sex.
Yep.
I mean, you know.
Well, it's even beyond that because, by the fact that they're not human, you know that there's going to be violence.
Well, yeah, and there was that, and there was sex in the series because there was like a whorehouse and all this other stuff. It's that the particular things they did, it was gratuitous to the point where it's like you already made your point with it. You don't need to keep lingering on this shit.
Well, I agree with you, but I mean, it's also
the whole idea is getting the point across. Once you get the point across, why are you still beating a dead horse?
It is meant to convey, though, that a lot of this stuff does become numbing. If you were to be able to afford to go to a place like that, you had the money, you were wealthy enough, you've been around the world, you've traveled any place, you're to the point where now you want to go to someplace like this. Why would you want to go? What's the reason?
Because
you want to be able to live.
Keith, it's Thailand.
Basically, that's what they were doing. That's really what Westworld really is.
Without
it is that
crabs.
Without the crabs. Look,
it's more like nanites.
When I was
got a case of nanites.
Yeah, when I was studying writing,
this is an area where the
professor always beat it over my head that everything when you're telling a story is there to push the story forward. Your dialogue is there to push the story forward. Even the plot devices you use, because it is a device. Plot isn't storytelling. Plot is just a device you use in storytelling. Sex, if it's in there, needs to be in there because it's pushing the story forward. And that's always been my stance on everything, because that was hammered into me in writing, is that everything needs to be there for one reason and one reason only, to push the story forward, the narrative.
The only need is to sell tickets. That's it.
Okay, that's Hollywood today.
No, like anybody. There's no point in making art. There's no more point in making art that nobody sees.
Yeah.
Michelangelo got paid for the stuff that he did, and the really good people are able to take the cash and actually do good work with it. I mean, it's a
Yeah. Actually, Michelangelo was also threatened with death if he didn't do the Sistine Chapel. So,
So living is his payment.
they were mad at him because he didn't cover up the dangly bits.
The dangly bits.
Well, they also ran away like 3 times.
We didn't hire you for porn.
Well, someone else came in, not Bertolucci, starts with B, came in and actually did the underwear
on the fresco, right?
on the Sistine Chapel, because there was just dangly bits.
But Raphael put Michelangelo into his mural, which is down the hall from the Sistine Chapel, because he was so impressed with the fresco work.
Nice.
This is just reminding me of South Park with the floppy wieners. Floppy wieners.
Go for Game of Thrones? Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I just think that.
Did any of you see the photo of G.R.R. Martin wearing his fucking
Orville
hat? And I fucking shit all over it. I'm like, that's great that you're a big fan of Orville, but why don't you get back to work and finish your fucking books and stop watching TV?
That's actually bringing up George. That's actually a good example of it, because at first experience with Game of Thrones or even Battlestar Galactica, when you first kill a character off, it's like, ooh, someone died. But at a certain point, it just gets kind of numbing when people are dying all the time. You just don't care anymore. That's what happened to me in Game of Thrones.
Okay, so if any of you guys can watch a show called The Sandbaggers, if you can find The Sandbaggers, it's an old British show, and they kill their main characters off, and you feel it. Like it's insane, the things they do, and it drove me nuts that they would get you involved in a character and then don't send them to Berlin. Oh my God. I mean, it's a Cold War TV show.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now here. I'm going to
Holy smokes. I'm telling you.
What a cast.
One of the best series of all time. No one knows about it. Oh, there it is. Sandbag.
You can watch it on BritBox, mate.
I was just going to ask that.
Oh, I know Roy Marsden. Yeah.
He was in a detective.
Oh, the Dalgleish.
Yeah, Dalgleish. Yeah.
Holy shit.
This thing is amazing because it's about the bureaucracy, about losing stations, and the guy is a workaholic, and I mean and there's a couple of
and
shows
I'm assuming it's going to get really into the minutia of that daily life.
You cannot. If you miss like the first minute of it, if you're yakking, or you will not understand the rest of the show.
I got to tell you, I love shit like that, Paul. I love old shows.
Fully
like
committed
that.
to the show, and
that's ironic because there's another British series that kind of did some of the same thing, and it was an influential show on Babylon 5.
Do tell, Keith. Come on, what is it? Blake 7.
Blake 7.
Anyways, yes,
all I gotta say, man, you're a
nerd. Secret pleasure nobody knows about, and you will go nuts over it.
Yeah, I will check it out.
Look, today I want to thank Brandon, who's gone already. I mean, he's not dead; he just left the show. And Paul for giving me fucking something to waste more of my fucking important time on.
I keep them short. I'm not one of these assholes that review a 45-minute show in 2 hours.
Right. Yeah, it's like I poke fun at Keith because Keith can get really windy sometimes. And but I also work closely with John Del Vecchio, the author of the New York Times bestselling novel The 13th Valley, one of the greatest Vietnam War books ever written. And I kind of put both of them in the same class of the only people I know that can watch 60 minutes and it takes them 2 hours to describe what they watched. Because it's like, can you not? You don't know how to summarize, do you? You do not know. No, Keith, you do not know how to summarize.
There's not a lot of large books that have kept my attention. Cryptonomicon did.
Brevity.
Which one?
Is the
Cryptonomicon. Neil Stephenson's Cryptonomicon, one of the a stellar book.
I'm looking it up right now. Found it. Oh, it's with a C. Okay.
Yes, Cryptonomicon. Not.
Look, man, I'm a nerd. Fuck you. I spell it with a K. Neil Stephenson or Stephenson.
Stevenson, yeah.
You know, with that, I think that's one of the mistakes of our media is that too many things are too damn long. Like, there's something to be said for something that is exactly how long it needs to be.
Yeah, like Keith's penis.
Oh. Whoa, you know what? Again, my parents do occasionally watch.
I know your mom watches the show. Hi, Mom.
Well, I started in sketch comedy, and it's tough to write long form for me. I'm a sprinter.
Short stories are really, it's a lost art, and but
I agree.
But they're beautiful. Like, I like really short stories. Like Ray Bradbury used to write these 3-page stories, and fucking love that. Sudden Fiction. There's a book that came out called Sudden Fiction that has a collection of some of the greatest writers from the 50s and 60s.
I'm going to write it down.
Sudden Fiction. Josh Becker bought me a copy for my birthday. And I'm like, God, this is great. I love these really short stories. And it's a single act. It's a single scene. And it tells you a story.
Neat. Yeah, but you can do that. I'm just shooting one of my sketch bits. A world-renowned country music singer. His dad comes back. He thought his dad was dead, and then he comes back into his life after 30 years, and his ability to write country music has dried up because all his songs were about how much he hated his dad. So the point now is that he's come to visit his dad in his RV to kill him, just so he can get his muse back to write country music.
Oh,
dark. That's dark. Hold on. That's dark. That's so dark.
Greenlit.
That is so dark.
Sorry, Dad, but I come here to kill you. Okay, son, that's fine. Do you want to do it here in the trailer, or do you want to go and do it in the woods? Oh, Dad, stop being so accommodating.
Well, I do want to point out that Keith said something in the private chat. The Man Who Would Be King, which is a great Rudyard Kipling story. And he says Chris Hemsworth and Henry Cavill would be perfect. I think it's a great idea because the original film version of it had two best friends, Michael Caine and Sean Connery, in the parts. And I think it really works, that relationship thing. Or even The Rock and Cavill, because, they're Eskimo brothers with, The Rock's ex-wife. Anyway,
I do have a suggestion. In short story wise, it's my favorite short story, maybe even one of my favorite stories, period, ever. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by
yes. Oh my God.
Ellison. I read it. Great.
So
I'd love that as a film, but I wouldn't want a long film. I just would want a film of that.
That is amazing.
Now, Deleted Scene's been holding his hand up for
that'd be X-rated.
To ask questions of Paul. So, Deleted Scene, ask your questions.
Okay. First off, Paul, thank you again for joining us here today. I've been seeing an upswing in Bollywood films showing up in American theaters. What do you think of their recent popularity, and what could Hollywood learn from that?
Well, my daughter and I are both big Bollywood fans, and my daughter actually did learn Egyptian and Bollywood dancing, so she was doing that for a living.
Wow.
So we were very immersed in the South Asian community and knew a lot of the old-style Bollywood movies. Where Bollywood's an amazing cultural entity.
I love Bollywood films, man.
You have to understand. Oh my God. That's a subject, a big subject all on its own. I think the popularity of Bollywood is very similar to the Korean films, is that they have not been infected by wokeism. I think that's really the popularity of the Bollywood movies. I mean, and I don't mean this is good. I'm just saying this. The girls are girls and the guys are guys. They don't turn the women into guys, which everybody in Hollywood is trying to do. They feel that the strengths of what makes a woman strong is no longer a value or interest. A woman can only be strong if they're a guy, and Bollywood goes completely against that. I mean, it's maybe it's a bit sexist in a way. They've actually, if you watch some of the new Bollywood stuff, they've moved the goalposts a little bit, so the women is not just a sexual object. They are actually have stronger characters and more interesting roles in their movies. But yeah, you know who the guy is, you know who the women are, and you know.
You don't feel like you're going to get hit with a bait and switch somewhere.
No,
well,
not
if
at all.
I may, I haven't seen a lot of Bollywood films, but I think part of the appeal, for those who may have seen them, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that a lot of the things you're describing, Paul, sound to me like a lot of classic Hollywood storytelling and characterization. You know, the type of films we used to get back in the day, especially with the musicals and just a little bit more of the we're putting on a show kind of aspect of it than we get out of Hollywood nowadays.
It's sheer entertainment.
Sheer entertainment. And they crank out thousands of movies a year.
And what I love about them, you can have a horror film, a comedy, a romance film, an action film, and there's going to be fucking music and dancing somewhere in there.
And my favorite ones are the ones where they directly ripped off American films.
Oh yeah, gangster films in particular.
And you can go, oh, I can see what's going on here. This is great. They've just completely ripped it off. Took the IP.
Absolutely. Hey, Deleted, you had another question?
Yes, I was also wondering if during the course of your career, was there ever a television show that you thought deserved more of an audience or more praise, but maybe it got slept on because the network executives didn't care, or maybe because the budget might have spiraled out of control? Was there something that you really personally enjoyed that didn't last long, that the ones where you just think, well, if only I had more of a creative input in that show, I could have saved it?
Are you talking about stuff that I was involved in?
Yeah.
The only one I would really include would be the one I would include would be the Frantics television show, 4 on the Floor, which is another story of why it got canceled. That was a terrific fun run of 13 episodes, and they replayed them so many times. I joked that we became the Star Trek of comedy, where people went, "There was only 13 shows." Yeah, they just played them to death. That was a combination of producers who were kind of playing fast and loose with budgets. Oh, there we are. There you go. The Frantics. Those are the guys, funniest guys in the world. And
hey, that's you on the end.
That's right.
You're not hamming it up at all.
No. I'm a shy guy. I was the shy one. And so what was really funny was back in those days, the CBC thought we were outrageous. I mean, the kids in the hall have taken it up like a huge level, but they thought we were completely offensive.
So you think that having the glory hole episode of Kids in the Hall was ramping it up?
That was different. I mean, that's their shtick. That's
their shtick.
But that was back in the day when they didn't really care about ratings whatsoever. They'd go to a party, in the beaches, and then a few people would go by. I find the Frantic show somewhat offensive. Okay, gone, and then it would be canceled. But I had a great time. I have no regrets.
I find that funny, being that Bizarre is from Canada, and my word, that show was absolutely outrageous. I mean, I love Bizarre.
I remember that.
Yeah, Bizarre with
Biner.
John Biner. Yeah, so that was a show that was a CTV show. It was a tax dodge show where the Canadian government gave you points, and so they brought up John Biner and Super Dave. And they actually made a good show. That was a complete
Osborne?
Super Dave Osborne. Yeah.
Super Dave Osborne.
Bob Einstein.
And that was an accident that it was actually good, because it was at that time where really scummy producers would come up and take the tax credit, make something, and then leave, and then that thing worked.
The Canon days.
Oh, especially their strip T-shirt silent gag that they did on a number of the episodes. that really works, especially when they got to the very end. People really tuned in after that.
Yeah, John Biner was kind of bitter that the show wasn't more popular than it was because he thought he was a genius. But
yeah, we got it on
I always
Showtime here.
Yeah.
And I used to. It's one of those shows that I used to pretend that I wasn't watching because I wasn't supposed to be. But I caught more than a few episodes. For sure.
It was kind of the Benny Hill show of Canada.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that's a good comparison.
Watched every week. That was one of the staples for.
It was
my
kind of
watching.
funny, extremely funny show.
We are on the wind down, guys. So if you've got some questions, man, now's the time to ask it.
Bizarre.
I do have one question. I want to go back to your, because obviously you're very talented, very funny. I love you. I love the Frantics. You have such a talented team. Mr. Green going on to do the Red Green show. How funny that is. Green on green.
And Prisoners of Gravity, which was the very first show ever to highlight comic book writers, artists, and also
Keith has brought them up before to me. Because I'm not aware of them, but Keith
Brown,
right up here, you know him.
I love Prisoners of Gravity. They actually showed that during the first 2 to 3 years of the Sci-Fi Channel when it was SCI.
Keith,
SCI.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Oh my God!
But working on that show, being from being around such immense talent, how hard was it for you for those 3 years at the CBC?
How hard was what?
Obviously, at the even though it was the late 80s, early 90s, how hard was it to filter through the bullshit from the actual storytelling?
Well, I mean, when I was an exec at the CBC, we did have a great time. We had a very good leader in Yvonne Fitzanne, a terrific visionary who was trying to bring a little bit more American network television up to Canada and the sensibilities. The man was brilliant, is brilliant, and it was just a real pleasure working with him. I learned so much. He came from NBC, a Canadian, went down, worked with Brandon Tartikoff, came back to Canada. I actually met Brandon Tartikoff, and it was a great time. It was a fantastic time. But the problem was budget cuts. But, it was working at the CBC at that time was actually fantastic. It was the budget cuts that killed things.
Well, I don't know how you feel about this, and I'm curious. I've always felt that as much as we push a separation of church and state, we should absolutely also have a separation of state and fucking TV. The BBC, CBC, it just always was concerning to me that the government has got its fingers in television.
On the other hand, CBC
And
was the
PBS.
only entity that would play indigenous television shows, produce indigenous television shows. The CTV and the private networks were not going to hire the Frantics. I mean, it's a double-edged sword.
I was just going to say
that's
that,
a different.
yeah.
It's a different
We have
long.
a similar thing
I'd
with-
love to have that with you.
Like PBS here and other,
PBS in particular is
situations, and-
problematic.
And you also have, what's the news outlet?
NPR.
NPR. That's another kind of
National Public Radio. Yeah.
That's another thing where, when you have something that the government's involved in, there's always that question of is it being controlled in a way?
Well, listen,
used for
they should
but
support the artists, not the politics.
right, exactly. I was gonna say there came a time, at least in the past, when it wasn't used in such ways, at least not to my recollection. Especially I don't remember during the Reagan era them having the type of shit they have now, as far as some of this public broadcasting and news. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it annoys me. But Awesome One, what the fuck do you mean? Put that back on Awesome One. Pabst Blue Ribbon, PBR? You mean PBS, motherfucker?
Oh.
Learn to spell.
PB Army.
I can understand where that is a double-edged sword, because without PBS, we wouldn't have had Doctor Who.
No, exactly, because PBS.
We wouldn't have had things like Mystery and
broadcast.
all that.
Monty
my favorite
Python.
thing about PBS is when it's supported by corporations. Like Exxon was notorious for supporting programming on the PBS. You shouldn't see the government giving it any kind of excessive help of any kind, because it should be free of that. so you know who that you're getting this network's opinion, not politicians. But PBS is there for that reason. Monty Python,
That's
before because I lived in the UK for a while, but I was already exposed as a kid to Monty Python because of PBS. Same thing for
Hi, Claudius.
Oh my
Hi,
God,
Claudius,
what
one
a
of the
great show. Derek Jacobi. Patrick Stewart was in that when he still had hair.
Mhm.
There you go.
Brian Blessed.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. Fuck Brian Blessed. I love that guy. Jeez.
Oh, yeah. George
Biggest
Baker.
mouth on the
Gene
planet.
Phelps. Oh, yeah. Outrageous.
I always put it.
Thomas
growing
the
up,
Tank Engine.
When I was in
Oh,
college.
yep. The original.
PBS at 3 a.m. in the morning. Best fucking time to watch the show. They would play all the good stuff for that.
Yeah. But we are on the wind down. I guess let me look, see if there are any more private chat questions. Nope, it was just my buddy Martin making sure I have the names of all our friends in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and give a quick thank you to everybody who's been in the chat. AF Watcher 88, awesome one. Baron Ormontag, who's also on the fucking show. Stop doing that, Martin. Stop including people who are on the fucking show. Martin.
I'm awesome.
I'm not going to call you Martin today. I'm going to call you Martin, motherfucker. Blaine's Escape Corner. I'm not going to include Brandon the Anime Guy. God damn it, dude. Brett Cohen. And, of course, Brett Cohen is Australian for fucking awesome. He is down under, and he gets up and fucking watches his show. I fucking love Brett, man. Good guy. CJ Batpunk. Das Wolfen. Das Wolfen, would you like to touch my monkey? Of course you do. We have Dennis McCullough. Fat Steven Seagal, who couldn't get into the room, who's normally regular on our shows.
He just couldn't get in because he's too fat.
Is that what it is? He couldn't squeeze in.
His
Gat
waistline.
Stargate. Grim was here. It was good to see Grim. Keely Chow. Lord Thoth. I'm going to skip Midnight's Edge because you're on the show. Mr. Tickle Trunk. Stop moving it, Martin. God damn it. I'm going to call you Martin for doing this.
But you really didn't skip me because you still mentioned me.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware of my stupid shit.
Duplicitous.
Of course, Parrot Head was here. I suspect he's a fellow veteran because he put some really good military memes in my feed. I fucking love him. Pat S. Penny J was here. That is Dork Knight's mom. Snow Dub was here. Socks Bulletins, a good friend to our channel. Stephen Ransom. Sil Abdul, who is one of our co-hosts on The Scoop Zone. That 70s rock fan was here. You Scottish bastard. The lovely Sherry. The Peter Vickman fan site. War Monkey. I have two favorite monkeys. He's one of them. War Monkey. And, of course, your Muslim uncle was here. Thanks for being here. And also, Adega Outlaw was here. So want to thank all you guys for watching the show today. And I'm going to put him back. Oh, good God. He's so large. I have engorged Paul again. Paul, I want to thank you for being on the show. Oh, look at that. I love this. You had it on Midnight's Edge yesterday. That was fucking awesome. His own action figure.
Big.
Who painted that? Did you paint it or someone else?
No, it came out of the computer that way.
Orange colors?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's
There's
awesome,
a group that can go around. I've seen them at different conventions that will do that. And
so it
you just
really
stand
is
there.
3D printing.
Yep.
That's fucking cool. That is so cool.
With the injected colors, everything. Thank you very much for having me on. It's my pleasure and an honor to be asked. Thank you. I
well,
very much
Keith's been
appreciate
wanting you on for a while, and I took advantage of meeting you in Tom's birthday bash, which was a lot of fun, man. People know how much I love Tom. It's on the borderline of being very gay. How much I love Tom. And Tom doesn't mind for some reason. I don't know why that doesn't creep him out.
More than once.
More than once. But,
maybe the feeling's neutral.
But I want to thank my amazing panel also for being here today. Paul, you were awesome as a guest.
Oh, thank you.
Keith is my partner in crime. He's my best friend, and so I hate doing shows without him. 24/7 Fusion Media, he's okay. I like him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love doing my impression of 24/7 in front of him. Yeah, man, that shit's cool.
Only if you can sound,
Baron,
only if you can sound as good, man.
yeah, it's only if I can sound as sexy. That's right. Baron Tog, thanks for showing up, buddy. Tom Connors, it's always a delight when you show up on the show. I know you're one of the busiest fuckers I know. And of course, Shinatsky, thanks for being here, keeping an eye on you, Shinatsky.
Geary.
Yeah, that's right, Geary. That's a joke because my sister's a New York Jew, and she calls me Geary when she says my name, and so they picked up and thought that was funny.
Geary.
So they call me either Gary with a J, as Tom says, or Geary. And of course, Script Doctor, good friend, and just fucking awesome to have you on. I'm so glad you're free to be here, Ben. I mean it. I want to thank Brandon for being here. It was good seeing him earlier. Thank you, Deleted Scenes, for popping in and out when necessary. And you know what? You made it through the show even with your shitty South Carolina internet. Good job.
Yes, I did. I made it.
I don't know. It sounds so broke up what he said. I don't know what he said, but you're welcome.
South Carolina. I love the people down there in South Carolina.
South Carolina, or as we say, North Florida. And
oh shit.
That just popped in my head. I don't know why I did shit all over you. I shit all over the entire state.
South Carolina, the gateway to Tallahassee.
The gateway to Tallahassee. Not Tallahassee, Jacksonville. Holy shit. Jacksonville is South Carolina. What a fucking shithole that place is. I live there, so I have an opinion on it.
I just want to tell the people of Florida, we do love you.
Hey, yeah, really. State of Florida, fuck you, but keep bringing the stories, man. Best state in the union for stories. Fucked up shit happening.
It's the flaccid penis of America.
The greatest thing about Florida, it is the home of Chuck fucking Dixon. And also my buddy Richard Bonk. So,
and just a question to all my American friends on this show here. We've got an RV. We're just scared to death of going into the United States. If you can just give me a buzz when it's safe to go down.
That's never going to be safe.
Stay out of
I'm going to give you a prime example. A buddy of mine from England flew over to do some work at the embassy in D.C. and wanted to come see me because I grew up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is 50 miles south of D.C. He got to Quantico, which is in between us and D.C., and he went to a convenience store to get some gas. And as he pulled in, he saw like 3 vehicles pull in with rifles in the windows, and he turned around and went back to D.C. He was so fucking freaked out by that. That's America, man. That's America.
Well, somebody from Minnesota, or as I like to call it, the lower Great White North, stay out of here. This is a crazy state. I say the safest place to go to is probably North Dakota. You can go to Jamestown and see the World's Largest buffalo and say you saw it. So
okay.
That's probably the best place for you to go that's safe.
And just so every state that I shit on in this episode knows that my opinions are those of Pop Culture Minefield. Because, I'm Pop Culture And so, so sue me. Fuck you. I don't care. I have
Script
nothing.
Doctor, you're living in the States?
No, he's in Canada.
No, I'm stuck in Canada. I wish I would be living in the States right now.
Not LA, though.
Blame
Not LA, no. I haven't been to LA in almost 3 years. It's been that long since just like literally the summer before the pandemic was the last time I was out there. And it was almost normal at that time. And over the past 2.5 years, it's gotten progressively worse. And,
yes, also one, very true. It does have an excellent exchange and commissary there. It really does. I spent a lot of time because Quantico also has the FBI Academy. So a lot of stuff going on there. I loved hanging out there. But anyway, that's the episode, guys. I want to thank Paul again. Paul, stick around for after the credits so we can chat for just a few more minutes.
Sure.
And again, God, man, what a great episode. I love all you guys. You make the show so much fun. I enjoy doing the show because of you. And with that, we are done with this show. And as Andre would say, and with that,
peace.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Pop Culture Minefield.
I
If you
seriously,
enjoyed the show,
Keith,
please
you
make sure
sound
to
like
like,
you've got a
subscribe,
fucking
and
cold.
don't forget to click the
Blow
bell
your
icon for
nose.
updates on our shows.
Is this those
and
gnats that he
channels.
had last week?
Also,
I swear to
please leave a
God,
comment.
Keith, re-record
And we'd like
this
to
for
know
God's
what
sake.
you
I
thought
keep
of the
asking
episode,
you.
as well as letting us know
I'm going to get
what
24 to
you'd
do
like us to cover in a future
Do
episode.
it.
I want
Forget that you
24
can
during
become a
my
member
life.
of Pop Culture Minefield
There you
now.
go.
Yes,
Make sure
join.
to
I'll
visit
be
our
there to do
membership
it.
page
Our membership is
and
growing.
merch
I'm so
store,
proud that
popcultureminefield.com.
you're joining like
Just
that.
have
Always
Paul
find
do
Pop
it,
Culture
okay? Just
Minefield
have Paul
on
do it.
Twitter,
It'll be funny then.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch.
Oh shit! Brett Cohen with the $3 super sticker. Thank you, sir. Only person to do a super sticker is super chat this episode. Awesome. The video for you, Brett, is your idol.
Tina Roberts.
Idol for your video.
Hey, you're covering my name.
Hey, that